Why protests matter. The power of united fans standing together. Do you ever wonder if your voice as a fan truly matters? If those banners you hold high, those chants you sing loud, and those stands you leave empty actually make any difference? Let me tell you right now, they absolutely do. As we head toward the Arsenal match on March 9th, it's time we talk about why our protests work and why coming together as united fans is more important than ever. The truth about protests that owners don't want you to know. Let's be honest, no owner will ever admit that protests bother them. Why would they? The Glazers have always put on a brave face, claiming that fan actions don't affect their decisions. But here's the inside scoop. We know for a fact that our previous protests had a real impact before they announced their strategic review. Just fancy corporate talk for putting the club up for sale. How do we know? We have sources close to them. We've seen what happened after the Arnold discussion. The protests disrupted their operations, damaged their reputation, and hit them where it hurts most. Their wallets. Why your voice as a united fan matters. 1. We control the money flow. Think about it, our club depends heavily on fans for income. Every time we buy a ticket to watch a match, to purchase a jersey or scarf from the club shop, to grab food and drinks at the concourse, that money goes directly into the owners' pockets. When we choose to boycott games, leave stands empty, or stop buying merchandise, we send a powerful message that can't be ignored. Have you noticed how much United's global image matters to the owners? That's because a strong brand attracts big sponsorship deals. Our protests, especially when they spread across social media or make headlines, can damage this image and force owners to listen. 2. We control the headlines. Ever seen those massive headlines when United fans protest? That's no accident. Protests grab media attention like nothing else. Suddenly, instead of talking about the latest match or transfer rumors, everyone's discussing unhappy fans and greedy owners. This creates the kind of bad publicity that makes sponsors nervous and forces owners to act. Remember when our protests made national and international news? When they started affecting how sponsors viewed their relationship with the club? The owners certainly do. What happens when sponsors get worried? They start asking questions. They start reconsidering their investments. And that's when owners realize they need to make changes. 3. We challenge their power. No owner likes to feel they're losing control. Our protests directly challenge their authority and remind them that we fans are major stakeholders who deserve a say in how our club is run. We've seen this firsthand. Owners hate protests because they undermine their absolute control. They want to make decisions without opposition, but our unified voice forces them to acknowledge our power. 4. We can influence politics and regulations. Did you know that large-scale fan protests can actually lead to government or league intervention? Remember the European Super League fiasco? Our protests, along with those from fans of other clubs, led to political figures speaking out and the Glazers backing down. This power extends beyond just our club. We've seen the Glazer clause implemented for buying clubs. There's a bill currently making its way through Parliament for a football regulator. All of this came about because fans stood up and made their voices heard. 5. We're stronger together. There's something special that happens when fans unite. Our message becomes impossible to ignore when thousands of us speak with one voice. Have you ever been part of a protest? The feeling of standing shoulder to shoulder with fellow fans who share your passion and frustration is incredible. It's a powerful, emotional experience that reminds us why we love this club so much in the first place. 6. History proves protests work. Looking back at football history shows us countless examples of successful fan action. The European Super League collapsed because of fan protests. Previous United fan protests led to partial concessions like the sale of shares. Blackpool fans' boycotts eventually forced the Oyston family to sell the club. These aren't isolated incidents. They're proof that when fans stand together, change happens. 7. Protests affect club performance. Owners know that a toxic atmosphere can impact the team on the pitch. No matter how disconnected they might be from the emotional side of football, they understand that prolonged unrest threatens their investment. When match attendance drops, when the atmosphere turns sour, when players become uncomfortable with the situation, That's when owners start to worry about the club's competitiveness and their return on investment. 8. We make other stakeholders uncomfortable. It's not just owners who feel the pressure from protests. Sponsors, players, investors, and employees all become uncomfortable with prolonged unrest. Imagine being a sponsor whose brand is associated with angry fans and negative headlines. Imagine being a player trying to perform in a stadium filled with frustration rather than support. This additional pressure from various stakeholders can force owners to reevaluate their position. 9. They can't ignore us forever. Even the most stubborn owners eventually have to acknowledge fan sentiment. We've seen this with the Glazers making unpopular concessions, putting the club up for sale, promising investment, or making knee-jerk signings to try to pacify us. A strong, collective voice will often leave owners with no choice but to act, even if it goes against their initial plans. The key is persistence, showing them that we won't give up until real change happens. 10. We highlight the emotional disconnect. Protests shine a spotlight on the divide between owners, often seen as outsiders, and fans who live and breathe the club. This emotional disconnection can be impossible to repair, as we've seen with the Glazers. When owners try to run our beloved club purely as a business, ignoring its identity as a cultural institution and community asset, our protests remind them that United is more than just a commercial enterprise. It's a vital part of our lives and our community. How to make protests work. For protests to succeed, they need to be sustained over time, not just one-off events. Well-planned and organized. Targeted at areas that matter most to owners. Focused on finances, reputation, and external relationships. The most effective protests disrupt the balance owners try to maintain between running a club as a business and preserving its identity as something deeper. At United, where that balance has been lost, our passion and persistence can force change. The road ahead. As the post from the _1958 mentions, they let the situation play out after the marginal investment into our club. But the clock is ticking, as their banner reminds us. By August 13th, we'll know what road we need to take. Protesting and finding creative ways to make our voices heard are among the most powerful tools we have. It's our democratic right to protest, and these actions do have an impact. Don't let anyone tell you differently. The foundations have been laid for unity at a scale never seen before in football. There have been battles over the years, but the great war to save our club, and perhaps football itself, is just beginning. Join the movement. As we approach the Arsenal match on March 9th, consider this your call to action. Every voice matters. Every empty seat sends a message. Every banner tells a story. Together, we are more powerful than any owner or board. Remember, love will always beat greed. Our love for Manchester United runs deeper than any balance sheet or profit margin. When we stand together, we become an unstoppable force. What will you do to make your voice heard? How will you stand with your fellow fans to fight for the soul of our club? Together we are empire. Will you stand with us on March 9th? Manchester United keen on signing Eberechi Ben Jacobs. Manchester United want to sign Crystal Palace star Eberechi this summer, but will face fierce competition from Tottenham Hotspur and Napoli for the 26-year-old midfielder. According to Ben Jacobs, give me sport, reveals the Red Devils are keen on who has a £68 million release clause in his contract at Selhurst Park. Spurs, Manchester United and Napoli all keen on signing Eberechi from Crystal Palace this summer, according to Jacobson on Market Madness. The player has a £68 million release clause and is open to a move, but his preference is to stay in London. Tweet: Spurs, Manchester United and Napoli all keen on signing Eberechi from Crystal Palace this summer, according to @JacobsBen on Market Madness. The player has a £68 million release clause and is open to a move, but his preference is to stay in London. Spurs and Napoli are similarly interested in the England international, but, crucially, the Lily-Whites could hold a significant advantage as the player's preference is to stay in London. Is an attacking midfielder who is best deployed as a number 10 or from the left with the freedom to drift inwards. Palace manager Oliver Glasner utilizes a 3-4-2-1 system at Selhurst Park. the exact formation Ruben Amorim has faced struggles implementing at Old Trafford. Ease is deployed as the LAM in this setup, a position Amorim is yet to find a suitable candidate to fill from his new cohort of players. By contrast, Ahmad has seized the Ram role with both hands while Mason Mount offers a strong alternative in the position, even if both are currently ruled out with injury. Ease would offer a significant upgrade to United's front line in either attacking midfield position, with his unique blend of creativity and dribbling making him an ideal number 10 for Amorim. However, a £68 million release clause is a steep price given the financial pressures at Old Trafford. And the fact Ease turns 27 before next season is another hurdle to a potential move as Ineos continue to prioritize younger targets in their new recruitment model. Therefore, while the Palace man's profile as an attacking midfielder lends itself perfectly to the new system being implemented on the pitch at United, the club's new approach off the pitch is likely to rule out a blockbuster raid on South London. Stay tuned as we break down all the latest rumors and what they mean for United's future. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for all the freshest updates on your favorite club. Let's dive into it.